Okay, so we're going to be creating a piece that resembles something this next week. And we started last week looking at the elements of a sculpture. And the first thing that we said we were dealing with was a line. So, line, we used wire. But this week we're going to think about planes. And planes are aligned through space, so it's sort of like a sheet of paper. And a slab is very much like a plane. Planes have two important attributes that we can deal with in ceramics. One is their shape, and two is their texture. Today I'm just going to be dealing with the shapes, and I'm going to make a piece that resembles this Bengal tiger. So I've printed off a Bengal tiger, pretty big for myself. I got a lump of clay ready to go, and you can see I have a slab that I've already rolled out. But if you haven't rolled one before, we're going to roll, and then we're going to turn, and then we're going to roll, and then we're going to flip, and we're going to look at the back side. We might fill in some of these gaps, and then again, roll and turn and roll, and you can see how I'm starting to smooth that out. And I'm just going to continue this process until I get to a point where I feel like I've got a big enough slab that I could draw or trace an image on there. Now, if you're looking closely, and you might not be able to see that, there are some air pockets because I was using clay that had already been used. And I like to use clay that's a little bit drier when I'm doing something with slabs because it's not so floppy. So when I rolled this out, I also noticed here and here and here that I was getting some of those air pockets. So I took my needle tool and I just poked them with a few little holes, try to give the air a way to come out. And I'm just going to roll over that again and maybe even fill in with a little bit of clay. And before long, I'll have those air pockets taken care of. Now notice that I've got this one on a paper towel so that when I go to move it, I can move it with the paper towel instead. And all I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to take my Bengal tiger, I'm going to lay him down on there, I'm going to grab a ballpoint pen. So something that's kind of rounded, but I like the fact that I can see where I've been. Then you have to work sort of quickly, but I'm just going to trace the image. So I'm pushing down just a little bit, not enough to push through the paper, but you will notice when you do this that if you take too long and your clay is really wet, the paper starts to break down pretty quickly. So you don't want to pick something that's super complicated and then put it on a brand new wet piece of clay. You want some drier clay, and you want something that you can trace fairly quickly. Now this time I'm just tracing the outline, and when I take this off, you'll be able to see if you get real close that there's a little line, a little indication that's there showing you where you made that impression on the clay. But I'm probably going to come back and go over that line with my needle tool to just make it a little bit darker. Now I could go in now and with any sort of tool that I can draw with, I could start drawing out other shapes. I could add to it. I could get creative. Trying to see what happens up here. Oh, I get it now. Look back at my original and I'll be able to figure it out. But there's my outside shape, right? So again, it's a plane and I'm dealing with the shapes that are here. But before I started recording, what I did was this process ahead of time, and I went in and I cut away a bunch of shapes. I dried this slab out underneath the fan for a little bit, and then I came with an X-Acto knife, a real sharp knife, and I carefully cut. And even though I've been doing ceramics for a long time, and even though I was taking my time and being careful, there were still spots that I had to like simplify, because just because it prints on a piece of paper doesn't mean it's always going to translate to a piece of clay. So I cut away what's going to be yellow and orange on this one. And all I'm going to do to develop my imagery now is I'm going to paint some water or some slip on this first slab, and that's going to soften that up a little bit. And I might score the edges a little bit just to make sure I've got some good soft clay ready to bond with this clay that I'm just about to put down on top. Paint that one more time around the edge. And carefully, 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 I'm going to pick this guy up. So I'm folding him off of that board that was there. And I'm going to lay him down on top of the other slab and start trying to get him lined up. So you can see some places are lining up really easily, and other places I'm going to have to bend some things to make it match more. Now, once I've done that, here's where I got to kind of like look and see, okay, this should be over a little bit more. It's going to be in here and maybe a little bit more down. Then, rolling pin, very light, gentle push. I don't want to change the shape and push super duper duper hard, but enough to get some pressure on there. And then now you'll notice that I did this after I put my top slab on my bottom slab. I can come in and cut through that bottom slab. And that way, if I got it off a little bit, it won't look like a mistake because I just cut it now. Now, I don't have to trace to do this project. I could make something like this just by drawing if I like to draw. I could build up different textures. I'm not going to on this piece, but you might want to. So let's say you like nature and you're doing a landscape. You might make the grass one texture and the trees another texture and so on and so forth. But I'm going to just deal with color from this point out. The one problem with this piece for me, for my own personal taste, is that it doesn't really feel like my design. But right now I'm just kind of doing something to technically be able to finish the project. But if I wanted to make this more personal and something that I was more proud of, I might try to come up with my own design and print that out to trace onto a slab. But for the sake of this demonstration, I thought that Bengal tiger is a pretty good one. So now I'm in this place where I got to clean up my details and a lot of that sort of stuff. But before I do that, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to take some paper towel. I'm going to kind of wad it up into a ball, just a little ball. And again, I got this paper towel underneath it, so I don't have to worry about the picking up the slab itself. But I'm going to give this thing a little bit of a curve by putting that paper towel underneath there. I might even put a little less than I just put on right here, right now. But now I'm going to come back and start cleaning up edges and making it look awesome. But that curve is going to allow me to put a little hook on the back so that if I want to hang this on the wall, there'll be some space that I can make a little hook, and it'll act like a mask, and it'll sit on the table, or I'm sorry, on the wall, and I can hang it, the way that I've hung some of the pieces that are over there above the board. You can see a couple of faces that I made years ago. So that's one way to do the resemblance project. You don't have to do the resemblance project this way, but if it's something that looks exciting to you, that is an option.